Oh, welcome to our class. It's today's theme is a concept from the Yoga Sutras called, in Sanskrit, the words are Pratipaksa bhavana. Bhavana means to visualize, and Pratipaksha is from the other side. So together, Pratipaksha bhavana means to see things from another perspective or to visualize from another perspective. And this is very relevant in, I would say, all of our relationships. We have our own view of the world, and everybody else has their own view of the world. And sometimes those views intersect in some ways, maybe not in other ways. And sometimes we really are separate in how we see things. We bring our own biases to every situation, and so does everyone else. So when we come into a situation, sometimes it's hard to see the other side of it, right? So especially because even when we try to view the other side of a situation, we're still taking our own thoughts, our own biases, our own conditioning with us. So checking in is really important. We often hear, one side of a story from, say, a friend, and it's a relationship between them and someone else, and we're never getting the full picture. We're getting their view of it. And so Pratipaksha Bhavana asks us to try to see 360 degrees around a situation and not just make quick judgments about what we think we're seeing based on our own perceptions and conditioning and past experiences. So it's also, about seeing things from a different perspective or a different angle. And today in our practice, we're going to play around with looking from different angles, or being aware of how the world appears from different perspectives. So for instance, when we lie down on the ground, we have a completely different view of the room than when we're standing or sitting. In downward dog, for instance, we see the world upside down and backwards, which again is a different view, and we will work a little bit with downward dog today, and some other poses that ask us to shake up our view of the world and see things a little bit differently. So just getting out of our regular habits and patterns of how we see, and looking at the world from other perspectives. And I've had this experience where I thought I understood something, and then I looked from a different perspective and saw a whole different view. And I mean, this happens all the time. So we're going to start lying down, as we always do, so you can get comfortable on your mat, and I'll see you there. So finding a comfortable position. As I mentioned, you can lie down. Legs can be bent or straight, whatever is most comfortable for you. And if you like, you can, from this perspective of lying on the ground, take a look around you. Notice what's in your view. And try to take in the perspective without judgment. Simply noticing visually what's around you from this perspective. Our senses are one way of taking in information, and our visual sense is often the strongest sense. So as you take in the world around you from this perspective, making no judgments as to what you see, but noticing. As we get older, we tend to get more fixed in our judgments and our perceptions and our opinions. And Pratipaksha Bhavana asks us to loosen our hold, to not cling so tightly to what we think is true, what we believe, but to widen that view and to see things as they are more clearly. We can never see things as they are without our own perceptions in the background because of our human nature. But we can certainly widen our perspective. So if you'd like, you can close your eyes now. If you prefer to keep them open, that's fine. And if you've closed your eyes, you might tune into what other senses come alive. Maybe you can hear sounds around you, or perhaps feel your body against the ground. So taking a moment to tune into your other senses. Probably taste and smell won't be as big an issue here as feeling and hearing. Maybe seeing if your eyes are open. So simply taking in whatever information from your environment is available. And again, without judging or even trying to change anything here. If it's a comfortable focus for you, you could shift to paying attention to the breath for a few cycles of breath. Simply feeling that rhythm and flow in your body without judgment, without needing or trying to change anything here with your breath. If the breath is not a comfortable focus, stay with senses, whatever is available. And take a few maybe slightly deeper breaths if that's comfortable for you this morning or today, whenever you're doing this class. And then when you feel ready to begin some movement, you can bend your knees if they're not already bent. Bring the arms down along your sides. And we'll stretch the arms up through the air toward the floor behind you. And keeping the arms in and straight, notice how close your hands might come to the ground. So they might stop somewhere, well above the ground. They might come a little closer. Really important not to strain your shoulders here. And if your shoulders are a little bit more flexible, you might bring the hands to the ground, and then we'll bring the arms back down to the sides. So it's not important how far you go, but that you tune in and notice, where does it feel like that's enough for me? When you get to that point, reverse and come back to your sides. If you want to coordinate your breathing, inhale as you take the arms overhead, and exhale as they come down. One or two more like that. You might notice the shape of your spine and whether that changes as you lift and lower the arms. And next time you're lifting the arms, stop about halfway through that half circle. So your arms are pointing toward the ceiling. Turn your palms to face each other and reach the fingertips toward the ceiling. Feel your shoulder blades widen, and then let the shoulder blades sink down as you exhale. So inhale, lift. Exhale, sink down. And then take the arms wide to the floor, reaching straight out from one hand to the other, expanding the hands and reaching with the fingertips. Good, one or two breaths here. And then slowly lift the arms, cross them over your chest, bring your hands to opposite shoulders, give yourself a little squeeze here. Take a couple of breaths and see if you can feel the breath in the back of your body. So changing the perspective of where we normally notice the breath. And bringing the attention into the shoulder blades, upper chest, or upper back, I should say. Notice which arm is on top as you expand the arms to the sides again. Take a couple of breaths there, reaching out. And then as you're ready, you can bring the opposite arm over top, both arms crossing, and take a couple of breaths there. And then opening the arms wide again. We're going to keep the backs of the hands and the elbows on the ground and find a position where it feels like a comfortable stretch for you. So you might raise the arms a little in a kind of a Y position on either side of your head. If it feels better for you, you can bend the elbows, sort of like a cactus or goalposts on either side of the head. So finding the position where you feel a little bit of stretch in the arms and the shoulders, but it's still very comfortable to keep the elbows and the backs of the hands on the ground. Pause here for a few breaths. See if you can soften and relax the shoulders. If you feel any discomfort, pain, or pulling in the shoulders, lower the arms a little bit and find a better position for you. And if you like, you can roll your head slowly from side to side within that frame of your arms, inviting a little more movement and perhaps stretch into the neck, shoulders, upper arms. And then gradually, if you're rolling the head side to side, bring it back to the center. And then slowly slide the arms back down to your sides. From there, taking the arms and extending them overhead again, breathing in. And as you exhale, bring one knee into your chest, squeezing in, hands come around the knee, and we'll bring the arms overhead again, breathing in, and then other knee coming in. And alternate like this for a few more breath cycles. And then next time the right knee comes into your chest, you can stay there for a few breaths, gently hugging that knee in, either holding over the knee or behind the thigh, depending what's more comfortable for your knee. And take a couple of breaths here. And then either continuing to hold the leg, or you can let the hands come to the floor or your body. Wherever you're comfortable, we'll stretch the leg until you feel a bit of stretch in the back of the leg, and then bend the knee in. Stretching up. If you want to coordinate your breathing, inhale as you extend the leg, and exhale as you flex. Notice if you start to bring tension in your chest, shoulders, jaw, face. Try to keep that relaxed, and especially if you're reaching for your leg, there may be some tension that comes into your shoulders. So if you notice that, try doing the movement without holding the leg. Okay, you can keep the leg up in the air with as much bend as you like, and flex the foot so that the toes point back towards your face. And then do a few circles with that ankle. Move slowly so you can tune into where you feel the stretch. And then relax your foot and give the leg a little shake. Great. And then bring your hands behind your thigh and draw the thigh close to the chest. You might need to bend the knee a little more or all the way to make this comfortable. And then keeping the thigh against the chest, we'll start moving the heel away from the hip. So this isn't about getting the leg as straight as possible, but keeping the thigh close to the chest. And using the muscles of the quadriceps, the front of the thigh, to extend the hamstrings in the back of the thigh. Good. Stay there for a few breaths, relaxing through the shoulders as much as possible. Flexing the foot, and then release. You can bring your foot back to the ground and maybe stretch that leg straight out, toes toward the ceiling, and we'll rotate toes to the right, toes to the left. And let that action come all the way from the joint of your hip, not just the ankle wagging, but the whole leg rotating internally and externally. And then point the toes to the ceiling and give the leg a little shake against the ground. And then bend your knee to bring both feet side by side on the mat. Let's extend the arms with the breath in, reaching overhead. And then as you exhale, bring the left knee in toward your chest. And again, you can hold on either over the shin or behind the thigh. Taking a few deep breaths, comfortable breaths here. And as we bend and straighten the leg, you're welcome to keep the hands behind the thigh or let them relax wherever it's more comfortable for you. If you want to coordinate your breathing here, inhale as you extend the leg and exhale as you bend it in. And then you can leave the leg in the air with any amount of bend in the knee that's comfortable for you. You can start by flexing the foot, reaching the heel toward the ceiling, toes toward the face. And then you can make some nice slow circles each direction. Right, and then relax your foot. Bring the knee in for a moment, so chest coming towards the thigh. And we want to keep this close connection with the chest and thigh. And for you, it may be a little further away, just depending on how that feels for you in the hip. And we'll move the heel away from the hip and then back towards. So again, it's not about straightening the leg, but about keeping the thigh close to the chest and using the muscles of your quadriceps to, as you engage and contract, to give a little more stretch and mobility into the hamstrings. Good. And then let's bring the knee in toward the chest, and you can release and stretch that leg out. And again, rotating externally, toes to the left, internally, toes to the right, coming all the way from the joint of the hip. And then give the leg a shake against the ground and bend the knee. And let's bring both knees to the chest, one hand to each knee, and we'll draw the knees in, maybe exhaling if you're coordinating the breath, and inhaling knees away. So moving at your own pace. And a few little circles, perhaps, if that would feel good. One way and then the other. And then letting the feet come to the floor. And you can extend your arms out to the sides. Knees bent, feet on the floor. And we'll come into the twist. So again, if you want to coordinate your breathing with the movement, you'll inhale in the center here. As you exhale, the knees go to the side. Feet can be together or slightly apart. You can experiment with what feels better for you. Exhale to the side if you're coordinating. Inhale to the center, or just move, breathe freely. So important never to strain the breath. If you like and you want a little more movement through the upper spine, as the knees go one way, you can let the head release the opposite way. Continue at your own comfortable pace. A couple more to each side. Right, and then coming back to the center. Let's once more bring the knees into the chest. And this time, extending the legs toward the ceiling. You can use your hands to support your legs or bring them to the sides or overhead. And then back in, knees squeezing in. Repeat that a few more times. And then as the knees come to the chest this time, you can take the knees apart towards the sides of your ribs. Take the arms and reach them down the insides. You can take a hold of your ankles or your calves if that's what's, or your shins, I should say, if that's what's accessible to you. Or if possible, you could even take the outer edges of your feet. And then we'll start to move the soles of the feet toward the ceiling. Doesn't matter where you're holding, and then back in toward the body. So reaching up and back in. And then if you like, you can keep moving dynamically like that, or you can stay in this position, again, holding wherever it's comfortable, and rock a little bit side to side. Sometimes in this position, it's not so uncommon to, whoops, fall over to the side. And if that's the case, just have a little giggle and then find your way back up. This is called happy baby pose. So there's no real rules here. If you roll over or let go or hold the knees, whatever feels good. And then maybe give a little squeeze in. And then feet to the floor. Stretch the legs out. You can extend the arms overhead. Turn the palms to face each other overhead. Draw your shoulder blades down toward your hips. Flex your feet. Press down into your heels and feel your whole body engaging in this simple pose. And slowly lower the arms back down to your sides. You can bend your knees again if that's more comfortable, or let your legs stay straight if you prefer. And let's take the hands, interlace them over the chest. Turn the palms toward the ceiling. Press up with the palms of the hands. And then slowly, if it's comfortable, start to take the arms overhead. Again, stopping well before you feel any pinching or pain. And then bring the arms back up to neutral. Release the hands and circle your wrists. One way and then the other. And give the hands and arms a gentle shake here. And you can keep the shaking as you slowly lower the arms to the ground, somewhere shoulder height or a little lower, wherever it's comfortable. Take a moment to pause and notice the sensations, any sensations that you may be aware of in your arms, shoulders, and hands. And then if your feet are apart, let them come a little closer so that the knees and the ankles are side by side. And we'll open the knees, letting the soles of the feet come together, taking a breath in. And then exhale, knees come together, and you can press into the feet a little bit to draw the lower back down. So inhaling, opening the knees, exhaling, closing and pressing down. Right, and then as the knees come together this time, we'll roll to one side. And in fact, if you think about rolling to the side that you don't normally roll to get a slightly different perspective and a different feeling. Unless, of course, that's painful for you. So you're going to roll to your side, use your opposite hand to help guide you upright. And we'll come right over onto all fours. If you want a blanket to support underneath your knees, please use one. And let's tuck the head in, have the knees slightly apart, rounding the back and looking back toward your legs or maybe even between your legs if there's some space there. Finding that perspective. And then follow with your gaze. As you start to lift the tail, let your gaze come down to your knees, to the mat, following all the way off the end of your mat to a point maybe a few feet in front of your mat, so you're not cranking the head back and trying to look at the wall or the ceiling, keeping the head in line with the spine. And then follow that perspective back. So watching with your gaze, follow down the mat to your knees, maybe between the legs or thighs, to the belly even. And then reverse. So let the tailbone start the movement and let the gaze follow. So tailbone starts to move and everything uncurls, the gaze following that path. Great. And then if you like, you can come down to child's pose. If that's a comfortable position for you, come onto your elbows or let your head rest on your hands or whatever is comfortable for you in child's pose. Take a few breaths here wherever you find yourself. See if you can find the perspective of breath moving into the back of your body here, a little different from we normally experience and feel and notice breath more in the front of the body. One or two more breaths here. And then we'll come up to all fours. And let's check in and place the hands in the most comfortable position for you. So as we bring weight onto the hands, really checking in with the wrists. So having the hands a little forward of your shoulders puts less angle on your wrists, so that might be more comfortable for you. And then checking in with, are the hands straight forward with the middle fingers pointing straight forward and the wrist creases lined up with the end of the mat? That's one way of doing it. Also slightly turning the hands out so that the index finger points toward the end of the mat may be a little bit more comfortable for you. You want the weight across the heel of your hand from the baby finger side to the thumb side and right out through the thumb and baby finger, and all the fingertips having some good pressure on the ground. There could be a little bit of a space under your hand, so it could be more like a dome, or you could flatten your hand into the mat. So whatever feels more comfortable for you. I find a little bit of a dome more comfortable than pressing into the bases of my fingers. So that's a common cue you'll hear in yoga classes. So really important to tune in and see what actually feels better for you. From here, you can tuck your toes under, and we'll start by simply moving the weight back, giving the feet a little bit of a stretch here, and then moving forward. So this supposes that your knees are comfortable with this much flexion. So if not, then you'll stay more upright. You might move back a little, if that's comfortable for you. Right, let's come back to this all fours position and lower down onto the elbows, bringing the elbows underneath the shoulders with the arms parallel to one another and the hands flat on the mat, fingers pointing forward. From here, imagine you're trying to pull the mat in toward the center, so you're as if your forearms are squeezing in towards each other. And you might feel the muscles underneath your shoulder blades and around the front of your chest engaging a little bit here. So we want to keep that feeling pressing down into the arms and feeling the width across the shoulder blades. You can let your head come down if that feels good for you. And it should feel like you're working with those muscles of the upper chest and upper back underneath the armpits in this area, the latissimus dorsi. Great, and then from there you can move back to child's pose or a modified child's pose if you find that your knees don't like to bend fully. You can keep your hips up a little higher, let the head come to rest on your hands or wherever it's comfortable for you. And then when you're ready, let's come back up to all fours and try bending your elbows as if you're going to bring them to the ground, but don't bring them all the way down. Just a little bend in the elbows and squeeze the elbows in from this position. And then keep that feeling of squeezing in and move the arms a little bit straighter. Press into the feet and lift up. So keep your weight forward over your arms. It'll feel like a little effort. Keep squeezing the elbows in and lower down. Good. You can sit back on your heels or sit down on the ground if this isn't comfortable for you, and do a few circles for your wrists. Circling one way and then the other. Good, and give a little shake. So in downward dog and dolphin pose, which is a version of downward dog on the forearms, there's a tendency for the elbows to go out and the hands to come in. So whether we're on the forearms or on the hands, there's a tendency to internally rotate the shoulders. And we want to try to act against that tendency a little bit to keep the shoulders engaged and to keep the shoulders more safe in this pose. We want to think about externally rotating. And as we externally rotate in this position with the arms down, the elbows come in and the shoulders rotate out, and I'm bringing my hands out to show that. The same is true overhead. So if we think of this as this is external rotation, this internal rotation. So elbows out, elbows in. And you can try that here. And you might notice how as we internally rotate, there's a bit of a hunching forward. As we externally rotate, there's more of a extension in the spine. So we want to keep this feeling of external rotation in the shoulders even when the arms are overhead in dolphin or downward dog. So if we try taking the arms overhead, and then we can try this action of a little bend in the arms, elbows out. You might feel your shoulder blades come in towards each other, and then elbows come in. And you can bring them in any amount. You'll feel the muscles of your chest working a little bit and the muscles of your upper back expanding a little bit. So this is the kind of action we want in downward dog, this feeling of pulling in toward the center. And because we have this ability to rotate the lower arms to bring the hands forward, we can actually rotate the lower arms without letting the elbows go out to the sides. So you can just play around with keeping the elbows in and rotating the wrists. Good. And then give that all a shake. So let's come back over to all fours. Find that nice position for your hands where you feel comfortable in your wrists, ideally. And if you find that you want a little bit more support for your wrists, you can always add a little bit of bulk under your wrist to take some of this angle out, to make less of an angle. You can actually buy a foam wedge that you can put your hand on if you find that this is challenging for your wrists. So be gentle with your wrists, be kind to your wrists, come out of the pose anytime. So we're going to tuck the toes under, bend the arms a little bit, squeeze the elbows in to begin with, lift up through the knees. You can let the head come down between the arms. Keep a lot of bend in your knees. Keep squeezing the elbows towards each other, and don't worry about what the pose looks like at all. Just feel that action in the arms, almost like you're pulling the mat toward the center with your hands, squeezing the elbows in. Good. And if you're still in the pose, lower down. You can drop down to your elbows, maybe do some movement for your wrists here, especially if you feel like you're working hard through the wrists and arms. It is definitely some effort here, so take as many breaks as you need. And then let's try the pose again, but this time we'll do the variation on the elbows. So you'll start on all fours. Take the elbows forward to where the hands were. So right underneath the shoulders. Squeeze in with the elbows so arms are parallel, hands not coming in or out, but straight in front of the elbows. Tuck your toes under. Press into the hands. You can let the head release down. Keep the knees bent. Press the hips back. Many people find this a little bit more challenging than upward or downward dog. It's a little bit more strength in the upper arms, upper back. When you're ready to come down, you can release, knees to the mat. If child's pose is comfortable, come to child's pose. And if not, you can stay a little more upright. Take a few breaths here. Arms, if it's comfortable for you, could come back and rest beside your feet, beside your legs. But again, whatever feels good for you. If you want to move in all fours to child's pose or do some circles with your hips or side to side. So whatever feels good for you, but giving the wrists a bit of a break in there somewhere. And then we're going to come into downward dog one more time and use that as a transition to come to stand. So coming back, this time hands on the ground, checking in with your hands and wrists. Bend the elbows slightly, draw the elbows in towards each other, and then you can press the arms a little straighter, tuck your toes under. Lift up through your hips. Let your head come down between your arms and take in the perspective of this pose. Notice what you can see. You can take the feet a little wider, look between the legs. And notice the world from this perspective. It's quite different from our usual everyday perspective. Take a break if you need it. And we're going to get the feet towards the hands somehow. So you can walk there. You can take a big step to get there, or you could even hop. So when you get your feet towards your hands, and for some of you it might mean that you walk part way and walk your hands back. So whatever works to come to a standing forward bend. From here, bring your hands up to your shins or your knees and find a little bit of length in your spine. And then exhale, release forward. Inhale and come all the way upright. Bring the palms together overhead, and as you exhale, bring the hands down in front of your chest and release. Take the feet a little bit apart here. And we've done a lot of work with the shoulders and arms already, so we'll do a little bit of release, taking one shoulder and rolling it back. You can let the hips swing, other shoulder. Let the head go. At some point, if you like, you can circle the other direction. Maybe the elbows want to come into it and lift, or it could even be full arm swinging. Right, and then come back to the center. Give everything a little shake. Right. And then arms dangling like wet noodles to your sides, knees soft, and we'll let the body twist more or less from the waist, but the hips might move a little as well. That's fine. There's no need to try to control the twist. But if you do feel any discomfort in your knees, if they feel like they're wanting to twist, you can lift the opposite heel, and that just takes the pressure off the knees if there's any issue here. And you can try it both ways and see what actually feels better to you. Great, and then let's come back to the center and keeping the feet wide, taking the hands to the hips. You might do a few circles with your hips. Go one direction and then the other direction. Right, and then come on back to the center. We'll take the feet even a little bit wider. As long as that's comfortable for you, you can be a bit narrower if you feel unsteady here or if it feels like too much stretch. Knees again soft, and we'll come into the dynamic twist. So taking a breath in, arms to about shoulder height. Again, knees soft. As you exhale, you're going to turn like a windmill to one side. So the hand comes to the opposite leg, and the other arm can come to the lower back with the palm facing out. And then anywhere along that line, so you can reach to the thigh, to the knee, to the shin, even maybe to the floor if that's available to you. You'll come up to the center and then over to the other side. And then you're taking the perspective, looking behind you, noticing maybe how far you can see around you. So letting the head turn, looking back, and even letting your gaze continue in that direction. Looking all the way behind you to the left as the hand comes to the left leg. Looking all the way behind you to the right as the hand comes to the right leg. Good, one or two more. If you remember which side you twisted to first, I don't think I specified. You can twist to the other side to finish. And if you're not sure, just make this your last one. Come back to the center and release the arms down. Take a breath in, lift all the way up with both arms. Bend your knees, come down, forearms to your thighs, fingertips coming together. Take a breath here. Exhale completely. Next inhale, come all the way up. Exhale, come down, forearms to thighs, fingertips together. Take a breath here. Nice long spine. Inhale, lift all the way up. Exhale, coming down. Again, one more breath here. And coming all the way up with a breath in. And exhaling to bring the arms to your sides. And let's step the feet together. Coming back to Tadasana, mountain pose. And take a moment here. Feel a little lift and opening across the collarbones, shoulders moving down away from the ears, crown of the head lifting up toward the ceiling. Arms reaching down toward the ground without creating tension, just the feeling of drawing down away from the ears with the shoulders. Take a few breaths here. Let your weight move back into your heels a little bit. And then rock forward and back. Lift the heels a little. Rock back. You can lift the toes, heels, toes. Right, and then coming to back to Tadasana, mountain pose. And we'll work with Utkatasana, the chair pose. So in the chair pose, we want to have the hips moving back and the chest staying lifted. Right? So it's actually called Ardha Utkatasana, or half squat. So we're bringing the hips about halfway down, and it's a lot of work for the thighs. So you can make it smaller, not going down as far, or you can go down further if you want more effort. So the position for the hips and legs, knees staying more or less over the ankles, hips moving back, chest moving forward, or lifting, I should say. So there's a little arch in the back. So it's not this kind of thing with the knees coming forward and the back rounding. Knees move back, hips move back, and to counterbalance, the back needs to arch to keep the chest lifting. So that's the kind of position that you want to be in. And we'll try the pose a couple of different ways. So first time, lifting the arms up, bring the hands together. Exhale, draw the arms down. You can let the hands come to rest on the thighs. Take a couple of breaths, maybe one breath actually. And then we'll lift all the way up. Bring the palms together. We'll bring the hands down in front of the heart this time. Stay here. Inhale and lift up. Good. Exhale, release the arms down. And you can go back to either of the two arm positions we just did, hands to the thighs or hands to the heart, or if you want to work a little harder, you can keep the arms overhead. So we'll lift up, bringing the hands together. Exhale, come to sit, and if you choose to keep the arms overhead, separate the arms, or you can, again, bring the hands down or to the thighs. Good, and breathe. Good, let's lift all the way up. Exhale, and release. Good. Just give everything a little shake. Let go of the effort of that pose. It is effort. And we're going to do it a little bit more. So you want to make sure that you're not bringing tension with the effort. We're going to add a twist to this pose. And there's essentially two ways you can do the twist. So when we come down to chair pose, we'll be bringing the hands into that position with the palms together at the heart. So if we start with knees apart, when we turn to one side, we're going to take the elbow of the arm, the elbow of the arm, of course, take the elbow to the inner thigh on the same side, okay? So, and, same thing to the other side, inner thigh of the same leg. Now, if you have the ability and the desire to twist more deeply in this pose, you'll start with your feet together. And as we come down, instead of bringing the elbow to the same leg in the inner thigh, because you won't have space there, you'll bring the elbow to the outside of the opposite leg. And then we'll turn to look towards that elbow or that direction. So those are your two options here. We'll try the pose to each side, staying low in between. And if you know that your body really enjoys a deeper twist, bring your feet together to start. And if you're not sure, say, have the feet apart and do the lesser twist version. Less is always better than more if you're not sure. All right, so starting with feet apart or feet together, taking a breath in, extend the arms overhead, palms together. Exhale, hips move back, chest stays lifted, hands come down to the heart. Take a breath here. We'll turn to the left first, so you'll take your right elbow to the inside of your right thigh. Press slightly into the left with your leg, out to the right with your elbow. Turn to look behind you to the left. Check out the perspective. Sink down if you want to work a little harder. And of course, if you have your legs together, the right elbow is outside the left leg. Try to keep the hips low if you can. Come back to center. Breathe in. Exhale, go the other way, and breathe here as you find your perspective over your right elbow, right upper arm, shoulder area. Come back to the center. and all the way up. Breathing in and release. Give a little shake to the legs, to the arms. And take a moment back in Tadasana to let your breath settle, let your body come back to a relaxed state after the effort. And then let's take the feet a little bit apart, about shoulder distance. Turn the toes slightly out. We're going to have the option of going into a full squat, which is where the hips come right down towards the ground between the heels. That is not possible for everyone with knees, ankles, or hips. If any one of those areas has tightness or lower back, this pose will be not advised. However, a modification of this pose we've already done today, which is to take the elbows to the thighs, hands together, and come into the supported half squat, which for most people is a nice relaxing position. If your knees, ankles, hips, and lower back and balance can enjoy the full squat, you can do that with me. So take a breath in, bringing the arms overhead, palms together. Exhale, bend your knees, and if you're doing the simpler version, you'll just take your forearms to your thighs and stop there. If you want to go to the full squat, you'll let the hips sink right down. The arms will come inside the legs, the upper arms to the inner legs just below the knees, palms together. You're pressing out with your arms, in with the legs, and lifting the chest. If you've come down to the squat and it's too much for you, you might just sit down from here. And if you're able to comfortably come up, lift all the way up. Sometimes we're not sure if we can actually manage a pose until we try it. The way out is sometimes just to sit down. Another way out is to lift up. If you've lifted up, you can give a little shake. If you've come to the ground, just stay there because we're all coming down. And if you've just stood up from your half or full squat, and take a moment to find your way to the ground. And when you do come back to your mat, you can come right down onto your back, hugging the knees in, maybe a little forward and back in Apanasana, exhaling, knees coming in, and inhaling, knees moving away. Again, you could make circles with your knees if that feels good to you, one way and then the other. And then when you come back to the center, give a little squeeze in. And then you can release your feet to the floor. Bring the arms down alongside your body. Have your heels lined up underneath your knees as much as comfortable for you. If your knees don't want to flex that much, the feet might be a little bit further away, and that's fine too. So honoring your knees first and foremost, and bringing the heels in close to your hips as available to you. So we'll work with bridge pose for a few breaths, moving dynamically. So you can start with a breath in. As you exhale, press down into your feet, down into your lower back, and then as you begin to inhale, taking the hips up, the arms could optionally come behind you, or they could stay on the ground beside you, and then lowering down. So coordinating the breath is always optional, but if you choose to, you'll inhale as you lift, and exhale as you lower. One or two more. And then whenever you feel complete with bridge pose, you can come onto your back, bring both knees up in toward your chest, keeping the arms on the ground beside you, and we'll stretch the legs toward the ceiling. Keep your knees as bent as you need to be comfortable. And we'll allow the legs to hang out here. And you might, if your eyes are open, take a view of this perspective. Normally when we look at our feet, they're on the ground or maybe on the couch. Not so often up in the air. You can wiggle your toes around, maybe flex and point your feet, maybe circle the ankles around. If you feel like it's effort to hold your legs here, you can use your hands to help. Give a shake. And then you can bring the knees in, give yourself one more hug here. And we'll head into Shavasana, our relaxation, to end the class. If there's any other movement that you would like to do before that, you can take a moment. And if you need any props or blankets or anything to be more comfortable, you can get yourself whatever you need. And then gradually finding yourself coming to a quiet, relaxed, and ideally very comfortable position. If it's comfortable for you to have your eyes closed, you might close your eyes for Shavasana, but it's absolutely fine to have the eyes open as well if that feels better for you. Take a few breaths where perhaps you take the breath a little bit deeper than you might normally breathe, but never to the point of straining. And have the sense as you exhale that you could let go of tension in your body, any effort that may have lodged in your body through the practice today, letting that go. Feel your shoulders release. We worked a lot with the shoulders, especially in the first half of the class. So notice how your shoulders feel. If you can be aware of any sensations, notice that. Let your arms release and relax wherever they are. And bring your awareness down to your hands. So we had the hands supporting us in downward dog and table or all fours position. We worked a lot with the wrists, so notice what sensations are available there for you right now. And if you feel nothing, that's also legitimate, normal. Notice that just as you would any other sensation. As you exhale, let the arms go. Feel them sink down and release. Let the neck and jaw soften. The face and the head sinking down. Exhale, feel the rib cage settle, the belly and the lower back soften. Sink down through the pelvis and hips. Soften the front and back of the thighs. Feel your knees drop. Calves release, ankles, feet letting go. I'll share a chant with you that describes a movement from a place of darkness to a place of light, place of unreal seeing to real seeing. And through that, we come from being dead to our lives to being more alive in our lives. And when we can start to see the world from various perspectives, not just our own limited beliefs and opinions, but when we widen our perspective, we gain more clarity, there's more light, and we see things more closely to how they really are than through our perceptions and conditioning, opinions and ideas. Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Amritam Gamaya. Om. So if you'd like to continue to rest in Shavasana for longer, you can go ahead and do that. And if you're ready to get on with your day, you can start to bring in some movement, moving and stretching, wiggling your fingers and toes, circling your ankles and wrists, whatever would feel good. Gradually rolling onto one side, either side. And making your way back upright. Bring your palms together. And as you go back into the world, notice when you start to form strong opinions and views, and see if you can find your way to look at the situation from multiple angles, even checking in with others how they see it. Maybe people who agree with you and people who you know have different perspectives from you, so that you can start to build a catalog of other ways of seeing. Namaste.